Credit Union. From finance to fitness, we've got it all. And after college or after trade school, or you've got that first big job, and it's time now to start really getting your finances in order. Scott Dobson joins us today. He is our at-work manager. He's also a financial expert that helps people really build their financial credit into savviness that is successful for you for the future. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I remember getting my first job. I was so excited. The whole concept of it and knowing if you did get benefits or didn't, it is an exciting time, but also one with lots of what do I do questions that start heading through your mind, Hey, let's start off and talk a little bit about, I think can be extremely harrowing, and that is whether it's good credit, bad credit, good debt, bad debt, and how to make sure you make the right decisions for your financial future.
Yeah, debt and credit, man, that can make a huge difference on your personal finances. And I was just thinking about this podcast and thinking back to my first real job when I got my job offer, and they're like, we're going to pay you $25,000 a year. And my mind was blown, and I was trying to figure out what to do with all that money. So it was fun to think back and say, boy, if I had to do it all over again, I could probably be a lot smarter. And here's what I'd do. I guess if I was just starting out, man, I just graduated from college and I just got my first job offer, and I'm going to get my first paycheck next Friday. Boy, what should you do about debt and credit, and what to do with your very first paycheck besides going and celebrating with every single penny of it, which is, you could do, but maybe not the smartest option. So if I could go back in time and give myself some advice on what I should do when I got that first job offer post-college, it was going to make a real steady paycheck. I think when I think about debt, the very first thing that I would want to do is to clearly understand what I owe, who I owe it to, and how much. I would just get a spreadsheet and say, I have student loan debt. It's X amount a month. I owe this much on it at this interest rate. I have a credit card. The monthly payment is this, and just put everything down on a piece of paper. So when you're looking at your debt, you're like, boy, I'm starting off with this great job, I'm going to get this paycheck. What have I already spent? What's already have to go out the door to maintain my lifestyle and pay my bills and keep my credit score high? I have to pay these bills. So just understanding what you owe and when you owe it can be very helpful to say, okay, I've got my student loan payment on the 20th, the credit card payment on the 25th, and I've got my apartment rent on the 5th of every month. Just knowing what your debts are out there can really help you, and also understanding, what's coming in. So you're like, all right, I've got my paycheck that's coming in this much every 2 weeks, and I've got these bills that have to come out every single month. And by understanding that first, you can really kind of put together where your money's going to go. If you've gotten through college without any debt, and you're looking at it, you're like, boy, I get my paycheck and I get to keep it all, high five yourself, because hardly anyone does that. It's the greatest feeling in the world. And for all of us grown-ups that have debt that comes out of our paycheck every single time we get paid, we're like, boy, I wish I could go back in time and have zero debt. And every bit of my paycheck, I got to do with it whatever I wanted. But that doesn't normally happen. You have that debt to pay for. So really understand that down, and then understand that credit cards, when you're thinking of debt, like, boy, I'm a grown-up, I can get a credit card. Credit cards are for convenience. Credit cards are not for accumulating debt. I run into grown-ups all the time that use their credit card to buy things that they cannot afford. And that's not what credit cards are for, and it works in favor of whoever's charging you the interest. If you can't pay off the amount that you spent, if the 5th of the month you buy something and you can't pay for it on the 30th of the month, you couldn't afford it, and you shouldn't have bought it. So unless it was a real emergency, you probably should not have used those credit cards. They're just not for accumulating debt. And finally, when I think of debt, if you incur debt, you're like, boy, I'm grown up, I need a whatever, I'm going to borrow some money. I would really think that debt should improve your situation. If you incur debt to buy an inexpensive car that gets you to your job that pays you a lot, that might be a very good way to incur debt. It's helping you earn more money. If you purchased a house and you got a mortgage, excellent. You got your place to live and you're probably building equity. That's a good way to incur debt. If you went out with Friday night with all of your friends and you picked up the bar tab for everyone, That is a terrible way to incur debt. It hasn't done you any good at all. That's what your debit card's for. If you're just spending money, it should not be in your credit card, and you shouldn't be incurring any debt if it's not helping improve your life.
You know, Scott, the one thing that can happen is you get your job. You mentioned knowing what debts you have and not accumulating more that you don't need to, but all of a sudden that happens. One of the things that I think that I have learned listening to our members is that sometimes you just put your head in the sand and just hope it goes away. It's not going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So how important is it to reach out and get, help by those that you trust?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say if you're feeling stressed about something, you need to take action. So yeah, if you are like, boy, I have too much debt, I don't have this figured out, I'm looking at it, and I've got 7 credit cards, what am I going to do? It's time to take action. So putting them in debt order and deciding how to tackle them can be very helpful in just putting together a plan for yourself. So if you clearly understand how much you owe and you've done that list and you've put it in order, it can really help you prioritize, because you've got a list of all the bills that you must pay every month. Then you can look at those and say, boy, which one of these maybe should I get rid of? If I'm going to get a tax return next year, am I going to earmark that money and pay off one of these credit cards? Or am I just going to put an extra $50 or $100 a month towards one of them until I get that one paid off and then take all of that payment and roll it to the next one? The worst thing you can do is just be like, oh, I'm just going to keep where I am and keep making minimum payments and hope it goes away, because you can pay on credit cards for dozens of years and never pay them off if you're just making the minimum payment. So I would say bite the bullet, say, darn it, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to make an action plan. Fortunately, you're out of school, you've got a good job, so you've got your income coming in. It's just how to decide where to put it, prioritizing those bills. But like I said, for us grown-ups who have had debt for a long time, it's less comfortable than not having debt. So if you can move yourself to that situation, it is going to make you feel better about yourself. And it's always nice when you get your paycheck and you have more of it to spend on what you want and less of it that has to go paying for debt for maybe something that you didn't really need.
Scott, thank you so much. Money, I'm home. I'm Lynn Jarman Johnson. Thank you so much for listening today. Thank you, Jake Esselink, for your production skills. We sure do appreciate it. And we'll see you next week as we continue to go down the path of learning how to use our money in a very smart way.